Hey, let's talk about the Biden document situation and other issues with two of the top Republicans in the House, Mark Green of Tennessee, chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and Michael McCaul of Texas, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
What's your take on this, the fallout from it, what we're learning now, 3 different places for documents? First to you.
Well, you know, initially I say it's kind of a double standard reaction to this, that somehow this was okay, what happened to Trump was not okay. I think it's interesting, too, that these were turned over a week before the midterm elections, and nobody knew that Biden had created the same sin, if you will, that President Trump did. Lastly, what I find most disturbing is that the Chinese gave a $30 million donation to the University of Pennsylvania as the Biden Center was standing up. What's the connection between that and the center? Why did they have classified documents? And Brett, whether it's one document or 1,000, if I did this, one document, I'd be prosecuted. And the civil servants, the public servants lower, absolutely be prosecuted for this.
Yeah, Chairman Green, you were a special operator back in the day. Same deal, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a TSSCI at the time, and if I had leaked or taken that stuff home, I would be at Leavenworth. And that's another double standard, not just the difference between the two presidents, but, a young rank-and-file soldier who loses that stuff's going to jail.
Here is the president to 60 Minutes and kind of an evolution as how he's talked about this. Take a listen.
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible. I've turned over the boxes, they've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully. The Department of Justice was immediately notified, and the lawyers arranged for the Department of Justice to take possession of the document.
Well, there are a lot of questions here. There's now 2 special counsels, one for the former president, one for the current president. You think we get to the bottom of this? Where does it go from here? Obviously, the House is going to investigate.
Well, and we will. I think Merrick Garland made the right choice to do this, have the same standard to do separate special counsels here, right? But where was the outrage on this one, right? His attorney found these documents a week before the midterm elections. Clearly, they had to have notified their client, the President of the United States, and yet nothing was done about it. And they swept this under the rug. They hid it until it was leaked to the media.
I want to turn to something about your committee upcoming. The president going to the border, meeting with officials down there, going to Mexico. Your take after that and what you expect from this administration on that issue.
Sure. I'm very concerned that what the president had was just a photo op, a press opportunity potentially for 2024. Some of those solutions, if you look at them, Brett, coming out of this thing, an app to help with asylum processing. I can see the Coyote advertisement now. For an extra fee, we'll fill out the app for you to get you into America. I don't expect anything different. This president, his entire time, has been doing nothing but facilitating more people coming into the United States. It's egregious.
Here's the president talking and criticizing the GOP in the House for the first bill and the vote. Take a listen.
Like many Americans, I was disappointed that the very first bill the Republicans in the House of Representatives passed would help wealthy people and big corporations cheat on their taxes at the expense of ordinary middle-class taxpayers. And it would add $114 billion to the deficit. Their very first bill. House Republicans campaigned on inflation. They didn't say if elected their plan was to make inflation worse.
Obviously, you'd characterize that differently, but the Hill does say, the CBO said that first bill, which slated was $114 billion to the deficit because, Chairman Green, you took away 87,000 IRS agents and officials who were going after.
Sure, they'd be picking the pockets of our small businesses. I can't expect anything different from a person who's been in politics for 50 years and never run a business, right? When an audit happens, that small business has to pay accountants and folks to defend that business against the government. And that's an extra price of bread. It just gets added to butter. So he thinks this isn't going to cause inflation. It's absolutely going to make inflation worse.
When you hear the president there and you understand the dynamic that you all have with a slim majority, do you think you guys can get stuff done that actually gets into law, or is it more setting the table for 2024?
Well, if I could just, when I chaired the China Task Force, 2/3 of our recommendations were bipartisan. The only shining moment this week was that on the select committee, you had a lot of Democrats voting for it. McCarthy and I tried to make my task force bipartisan, and Pelosi wouldn't go for it. This will be bipartisan. So I think, that task force will recommend legislative recommendations to my committee. And I think this is one window of bipartisanship where we can get something done for the American people in the interest of our national security.
And I think we've got to move on those fronts simultaneously. I had a conversation earlier with Secretary Mayorkas, and I told him, we're coming. We've got stuff we're going to ask. We're going to put you in the chair and ask you those hard questions. That's sort of silo one, if you will. And then there's our commitment to America, the legislation we promised that got us the majority. So we have to go on that silo. And then the third silo is those areas where we agree. And I think we're going to have some bipartisan legislation, and we need to move on those simultaneously, because the American people don't just want us conducting investigations. They want us to move the needle for the country. So we're going to move down all three of those avenues of approach, as we'd say in the military, and accomplish things in all three.
Chairman Green, Chairman McCaul, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.